Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel. A while ago I made a tutorial video on the QUN MK2 and that video is doing quite well, and I got a lot of comments asking if I could talk about the granular sampler found on this box. So if you think that's an interesting topic, please join me in this video. Here we go. Okay, so granular sampling on the QUN MK2 mini groove box. And I already made a video on this mini groove box some weeks ago, and if you didn't watch that, I really recommend watching that video before watching this video in order to understand the sequencer, the looper, and the three system modes here. Just a quick recap for you. There's a built-in sequencer you can use to record sequences, obviously. There's an internal synthesizer, which has a maximum polyphony of 4 notes. In order to work around that limitation, there's a stereo looper built into this, which is more like a 3-track stereo tape machine, kind of like in the Teenage Engineering OP1, which uses that 4-track or 8-track tape. The difference here being you can always use the sequencer to change your chord progression or bass line or whatever, and then record it again to the looper, contrary to the Teenage Engineering OP1, where once it's recorded you can't change it anymore. Yeah, let's take a look at the granular sampler. For that, you must be in play and recall mode, and as you may remember, you can hold down Shift and switch through the different functions here, and you can already see it on the enclosure here. We want to press Shift and the last button here, and now you can already see this. It's saying granular, that's the granular sampler. Yeah, I've connected this EasyPlay 1S mini MIDI keyboard to the stereo input of the QUN MK2. What we want to do now is to hold record and play, and then just play a note here, and then press stop. Now, we've recorded a short sample. The next thing we want to do is to analyze that sample, which will help speeding up the time stretching that is employed by the QUN MK2 to play notes of different pitches. So let's press the first button here, and I can see here's a menu. You can scroll through with the main knob here. So go to Analyze and press OK and wait until it's finished analyzing our sample. Next thing we want to do is to set up the play mode of the granular sampler. So hold down the rightmost button here, and now we can change the repetition modes. This is one shot, and reverse, and here's repeat. That's what we want to do. It will always repeat a section of the sample we just cached. So granular sampler is just like a regular sampler, but you can change the starting point and the ending point of the sample slice you're playing live. This is what the QUN MK2 does as well. So the next thing we need to set up is the starting point of the sample. So this is on the third button here. You can see I can now adjust the starting point of the sample. And then we want to adjust the end of the sample where it's sliced. So let's take a look at that here. It's a length of 80. With that, we now go to our synthesizer. So press the param and mute button here. We're back in synth mode. Here we are on page 1. So hold down Shift and press the first button here. And we want to change that waveform there. This is the first option. Remember, you can choose the different parameters of the synth using the buttons, while Shift and the buttons will take you through the different menus, okay? That's the first option. We want to change that wave from saw wave to this here, auxiliary left. If I've done everything correctly, we should now hear piano sample. It's repeating the note there because that's what we set up. Okay, so far so good. Now let's go back to our granular sampler. So press play and recall again. What we want to do now is to use the MIDI learn function to assign our knobs on the MIDI keyboard so we can adjust the starting and the end point of the sample live. Because that's the fun thing about granular samplers. They kind of work like a wavetable synth. You can change the sound dramatically by moving around the start and the end point of your sample slice. So here I've got my Van Gogh MIDI keyboard 25, which was given to me for review. Today I'm using it because it has these nice endless encoders here. We want to change the start point. Hold down this button for some seconds and you can see it's saying MIDI learning there. And now just move this around and then you can see I can move around this slice with the encoder. Same for the ending point, grain length parameter, and there you see it. You can now move this around. With that being done, there are other options you can use as well, but we'll just leave it through these two parameters here. Let's go back to the synthesizer, press param and mute again, go to the first screen, and now let's press a note here. And now we should be able to change this. Yeah, there you can see it. When changing the position, I will change the brightness of the sound because we're moving from the first very rich in overtones starting of the piano sample to a more mellow part of the sound. And what we can do now is we can use the synthesizer functions here to apply them to this sample. So for example, here's my envelope. And I can now change the sustain phase, the release phase, the decay phase. And of course we can also apply filters. LFOs. So one last thing I want to add before closing this video is you can actually control the position of the slice and the sample with the pulse width modulation parameter here on page 1. So hold Shift and 1. I can see in this slider here, this is the position of your pulse width modulation if you have a pulse wave selected, but if you're using the granular sampler, then this will affect the position of your sample starting point, okay? I've changed to a harp sample here to illustrate this. So let's change the pulse width here. You can hear the sample moving around, and the last parameter here is how much the LFO affects pulse width modulation. So on the granular sampler, this will change the position of the starting point of the sample. So let's take a look at this. A rather low value here. Now let's change the sample length and start on the keyboard here. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do, a lot of samples you can explore with this, trying to find some good sounds. Yeah, I hope this was helpful in any way. The Nunomo QUN MK2 is around $170. I think that's the cheapest hardware granular sampler around. So yeah, if you found this interesting, please take a look at Nunomo's page for more information on the QUN MK2. Press the like button under this video, subscribe to my channels, and yada yada, you know. Yeah, and that's it for today. The granular sampler on the QUN MK2. And if you think this was a good YouTube video, please do the YouTube thing. As always, thanks for watching and see you again very, very soon. Bye bye.